The officer knew the shell didn't match. She reported it anyway, quietly, just once. 9 minutes later, the case vanished from the federal system. Someone needed a scapegoat, and someone else had just been erased. It started with a bullet that didn't belong. It lay on the sterile metal tray like an accusation. Brass, scratched, wrong. The ridges on its casing bore no resemblance to the department-issued Sig Sauer ammo. But no one said a word. Not out loud, anyway. I stood in the evidence room under the flickering fluorescent lights, the kind that always buzzed like a dying fly, making you feel like you were being watched even when you weren't. My gloves made a faint snap as I turned the casing over in my hand. The grooved markings were off, a textbook ballistic mismatch. My pulse ticked up slightly, not from fear, but from the grim certainty that this would not be welcomed news. I knew the chain of custody had been tight, too tight. It was impossible this casing had entered the scene by mistake, which meant it had been planted. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I logged the find. One line, no commentary, just the evidence tag and a short note. Casing markings inconsistent with weapon discharge log. A quiet report. Just a breadcrumb, but enough. By the time I returned to my desk, I noticed the first flag. The system logged a background ATF case access request, masked as routine. Someone from outside had entered our internal database less than 10 minutes after I'd filed. The federal system trigger shouldn't have gone off for such a minor update. And yet it did. My screen blinked with an access notice I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't move. I just stared at the timestamp, 9 minutes, 43 seconds after my upload. The agent ID was masked, only visible in the back-end log, but the response was immediate. No matches, cleared from suspicion. They didn't even fake a full investigation. Someone had buried the report before it breathed air. My stomach turned. The room suddenly felt smaller. I heard the lieutenant's voice again in my head, clear as glass and just as sharp. I need a scapegoat by tonight. I had thought it was an offhand comment during the morning meeting. Half joke, maybe frustration. Now it sounded like prophecy. 2 desks over, McCall was laughing with Jenkins about the new Zoom HR mandate for biometric verification. I could barely process the words. They passed over me like static. Was I the scapegoat? Or had I just stopped the wrong one from being chosen? I reached for my coffee, but my hand trembled. A rookie in the corner printer area turned his head toward me and then away just as fast, pretending not to look, pretending he didn't just see something flicker on my screen. I minimized the case log and opened an Excel spreadsheet like I was checking shifts, normal, casual. My mouth tasted like metal. I knew better than to ask questions out loud, especially not now. Not after a no match came back faster than an autopsy report on a Sunday. And definitely not when your silence is expected to mean agreement. But I couldn't stop seeing the mismatch. It was still there, in black and white, buried under a timestamp. Was I the only one seeing it? Or the only one who cared? She thought she'd done the right thing, just one line in the system. But the system had teeth, and now it had her scent. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the casing, the timestamp, and that reply. No matches, cleared from suspicion. Cold, clean, too fast. By morning, I was back in the office before sunrise. The precinct was still quiet, just the hum of vending machines and the soft clack of distant boots echoing in the hall. I didn't clock in. I didn't make noise. I just needed to check something before anyone else logged in. The system logs were still there, but someone had tried to overwrite the access trail. Sloppy. A fake timestamp was pasted over the original entry, but the digital signature remained. Whoever cleared the report didn't expect someone like me to check the audit log behind the log. The signature belonged to a known alias, Drew 142. That was an ATF oversight agent, not local, not regular, and definitely not in the habit of cleaning up loose ends this fast unless someone told him to. I ran a trace. Dead end. The system pinged back with a flagged access attempt warning. Within 60 seconds, my monitor blinked. Access terminated. Forbidden request. I sat back in my chair. That was no firewall. That was an internal hand slap. Someone in federal oversight had just watched me look into a file I technically wasn't supposed to remember existed. This was bigger than the precinct, bigger than a single casing. The lieutenant passed by my desk like he always did. He had that casual, fake stretching body language, shoulders rolled back, hand grazing the edge of my cubicle, like he didn't even notice me. But I noticed what he left. A yellow sticky note. Blank. Just the act of leaving it said everything. A warning, not a request. I left it on my desk untouched. If anyone watched the cameras, they'd see I followed the script, saw nothing, said nothing. But something had shifted. That day, every conversation felt rehearsed. HR sent out a new Zoom invitation for a routine policy refresh. Jenkins complained about it, but I noticed he didn't show up. Neither did anyone mentioned in the report with the ballistic mismatch. The only people at that meeting, me, a few rookies, and one very quiet officer from another shift, someone I didn't even know worked here. After the call, I returned to find my printer queue jammed with 8 pages of policy revisions. None of them applied to me, but all of them were flagged with my name at the top, my badge ID, like I'd requested them. Scapegoat request. The phrase hit me like a slap. Someone was rewriting the narrative, and I was being written into it. Back in the evidence locker, I scanned the database. The casing? Gone. Not deleted. Reclassified into a cold case from another district. Case system log. Chain of custody issue. Reassigned for review. But I never signed a transfer, and my signature was on the file anyway. That's when I realized they'd used the biometric scan from the HR Zoom update, the one we thought was for login compliance. It had captured facial confirmation, mapped and stored. My face, my voice, my approval, digitally forged into the chain. I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd thought was oversight was precision, and I had stepped right into the trap with a quiet click and a badge scan, and still, I couldn't prove any of it. Not yet. She thought they wanted silence, but the system wanted obedience, and it was writing her into history as the one who obeyed. They're erasing her, click by click. Don't miss what she uncovers next. Hit follow before it disappears. Don't blink. The next chapter hits harder. There's a sound your breath makes when it catches behind your ribs, not a gasp. Something smaller, almost silent, like your body knows to stay quiet before your mind fully understands why. I heard that sound in myself when the email came in. Subject line, policy non-compliance, review required. It looked routine, the kind of HR notice we all get and delete without reading, but this one had attachments, PDFs, time logs, screenshots. One in particular caught my eye, a still frame from the Zoom HR session, my face frozen mid-blink, overlaid with a timestamp and the words, facial confirmation logged. Underneath it, request to reassign evidence from case Mach 4321A, authorization, Officer T. Rains. My name, my image, my supposed consent. I hadn't said a word in that Zoom call, no button clicked, no form submitted, but the system had spoken for me. It didn't matter what I'd actually done. What mattered was what the record said I'd done. And in our department, the record was reality. I closed the email and stared at my reflection in the blacked-out monitor screen. The office behind me continued as if the walls weren't caving in. Jenkins was laughing again, same forced cadence, too loud, too staged. Across the floor, the copier beeped, churning out print after print. The mechanical hum felt like a metronome to panic. Then, my desk phone lit up. Internal line, no name, just a number I didn't recognize. I picked up, no greeting, just breathing. Then, a voice. Male. Familiar, but not enough. You weren't supposed to see the log. Silence. You can fix it. Just upload the standard report. Say you made a notation error. It goes away. Click. The line went dead. That call wasn't about threats. It was about opportunity. I still had the choice to fold neatly into the narrative they were writing. A small lie, a correction, a little silence in exchange for peace. But peace built on lies was quicksand, and my feet were already sinking. That night, I accessed the terminal from a side room, one of the old briefing offices that hadn't been updated with the new federal sync protocols. Offline, no auto-flagging, no biometric mirroring. I went digging. The cold case file my evidence had been reassigned to didn't exist in our department. It was listed under a rural field office 4 states away. No detectives, no open logs, just a case number, a digital shell, and a name, R. Delaney, the real original suspect. Or maybe the original scapegoat. They were building layers, cover stories for cover stories, and I had just stepped into the space between them. Then I saw it, an internal oversight memo dated 3 weeks before the shooting incident. It mentioned a scenario preparation involving officer reassignment, evidence chain reclassification, and pre-cleared agent responses in the event of ballistic report conflict. 3 weeks before the crime even happened. It hadn't been cleanup. It had been protocol. I wasn't part of a system that had failed. I was inside one that had practiced. There's a unique kind of loneliness when you realize the truth is heavier than your badge. I sat alone in the break room, steam curling up from my untouched cup of stale machine coffee. The kind that tastes like it was brewed by someone who's never felt joy. Outside the window, the parking lot glistened under cold morning rain, the drops rhythmically drumming against the glass like a countdown I couldn't stop. Everyone else moved normally. Too normally. The usual suspects passed through the corridor, laughing, complaining about printer jams and Zoom compliance trainings. But their eyes didn't linger on me. Not even once. That was when I understood. They already knew. Or worse, had decided not to. I wasn't just isolated. I was strategically removed. The printer near my desk beeped again. Paper slid out with a mechanical hiss. I hadn't sent anything, but the page bore my name. It was a reprint of the transfer report, my signature, digitally verified, QR-coded, stamped by internal audit. The message was clear. It's done. I clutched the page, heart pounding. My own workstation had been accessed again, logged remotely from a mobile compliance unit, a term we all pretended meant something official, but nobody had ever seen one in person. The access time matched exactly when I'd been in the evidence locker 2 days ago. I hadn't been near my computer. Someone had overwritten my location data. Scapegoat request executed seamlessly. I stormed into the HR annex. The woman at the desk blinked at me slowly, her nameplate reading M. Carson, Oversight and Wellness. I could hear my own voice crack before I could stop it. Why was my biometric data used to authorize a reassignment? She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned to her monitor with a practiced calm, typing like she already knew what I was about to ask. Oh, that must have been part of the auto-consent protocol during your last Zoom onboarding. If you didn't opt out verbally at the start, the system logs it as passive consent. Passive. Consent, I blinked. And that counts as legal authorization? She smiled. You'd be surprised what counts when it's recorded. I left her office lightheaded. They didn't just want silence. They wanted complicity they could cite. They'd created a version of me that nodded, clicked, and confirmed, all without me lifting a finger. And now, that version was being copied into case logs across departments. I wasn't just a suspect. I was becoming the author of my own damnation. That night, I got home to find a manila envelope on my doorstep. No postage, no markings, just one word scribbled in sharp black ink. Rains. Inside, a printed screenshot of my terminal access from the offline room. The one I thought was safe, the timestamp circled in red, and a sticky note, this time with writing, "Not your fight, not your name." But it was my name, and they'd already attached it to something dark. Letting go now wouldn't clear me. It would only make me disappear quietly. The first thing to die in a system like this is coincidence. After that, it's you. By the time I arrived at the precinct the next morning, the air felt different, heavier. Everyone was polite, but in that off-key way that made your skin itch. Too many smiles, too many empty mornings, not enough eye contact. I opened my locker. The inside had been rearranged. My backup flash drive, the one I kept taped to the roof of the compartment, was gone. No break-in, no damage, just gone. They weren't hiding their steps anymore. They were letting me know they could walk wherever they pleased. A new name had appeared on the daily rotation log, Officer G. Marin, listed as my shadow partner. We didn't do shadows in our department, not unless someone was flagged. That's what I was now. Flagged. The email came in just after noon. Subject: Performance Review Escalation. A mandatory meeting in room B9, basement level. No windows, not listed on any of the digital floor plans. I showed up 5 minutes early. The door was open. Inside, nothing but a folding table, 2 chairs, and a portable printer with a single document waiting in its tray. 1 sheet, a statement, pre-written, my confession, a full admission of procedural error, acknowledgement of report misclassification, and agreement that the ballistic mismatch had been an interpretive oversight resulting in resource misallocation. At the bottom, my name, already typed. Date, today. Signature, blank, scapegoat request, final form. The door clicked behind me. Marin entered with the kind of walk that says he wasn't here to negotiate. He stood across from me, arms crossed. Just sign. They'll process it as voluntary. You'll keep your license, no charges, clean exit. I didn't move. What happens if I don't? He shrugged, like it was a weather report. They find someone else's name to sign it, and that person lives with it. That was the problem. The system didn't care who carried the weight, as long as someone did. And the signature was just theater. If not me, it would be a version of me. A digital echo. The quiet report officer. The one who saw the casing, noticed nothing, said less. But I wasn't her. Not anymore. I need a copy, I said. Marin blinked. I'll sign, I added, but I want a hard copy for my files. Standard policy, right? He stared at me for a moment too long. Then he nodded, turned to the printer, and made a duplicate. I signed one, took the other, and walked out. Back at home, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I waited until 2:43 a.m., the hour when systems run backups and human eyes are off the logs. I scanned the document, highlighted every inconsistency, metadata, font layers, even a hidden comment left behind by the internal audit team. Template 3, expedited closure for federal optics. Not my mistake. Not even a report meant for me. Just a role, a label, a body to fill the outline they'd drawn months ago. I uploaded the signed statement and the audit trail into an encrypted drive. Then, I did something reckless. I sent it to external oversight. Real oversight. Anonymous. But traceable. If someone decided to follow the digital breadcrumbs I left in plain sight, I knew what that meant. I was no longer invisible. You don't realize how loud silence can get until it surrounds you. The morning after I submitted the file, no one looked at me. Not in the way people avoid eye contact, no. This was deeper. As if I had already been filed away. As if I didn't exist. My login badge failed at the front gate. Twice. The third time, a junior clerk buzzed me in with a glazed expression and a muttered, "Glitch in the system." But I knew it wasn't a glitch. It was a quiet revocation, a silent exile wrapped in protocol. At my desk, my access was restricted. I could only open scheduling tools, department newsletters, and mandatory compliance videos. No cases, no logs, no evidence chains. That was when I saw the final layer of the trap unfold. The case I'd tried to track, the one where the ballistic mismatch originated, had been closed, but not solved, not cleared. It had been reclassified as an administrative training simulation. All data scrubbed, all personnel reassigned, all mentions of mismatch, scapegoat request, or even ballistics, erased from the case tag system. Even my own notes, once visible in the internal database, now returned. No match found, document unavailable, cleared from suspicion. Exactly 9 words, exactly like the reply from the ATF system. They were scripting everything, down to the vocabulary. My heart thudded as I checked my personal email that night. A single new message, no sender, no subject, just a PDF attachment. It was a copy of the very same template memo I had signed in room B9, except this version had someone else's name typed in. Delaney, the same suspect whose cold case had swallowed my evidence. And beneath it, a note in plain text. This one didn't sign. We adapted. Adapted. The word echoed like static in my skull. They had forged the entire trail, name, report, timestamps, on 2 people, one real, one present, one vanished. I was never meant to carry the full blame. I was just a placeholder, a contingency. The real scapegoat was already gone. But the breadcrumb I'd left, the mirrored upload with the audit trail, had been opened. I could see the fingerprint in the server logs. Someone in federal oversight, real oversight, had accessed the drive at 4:17 a.m. and not just opened it, downloaded it. I didn't know if they were an ally. But someone was listening now, and that meant I wasn't alone anymore. I didn't expect a reply, not from them, not after everything. But 3 days later, it came. Not by email, not by phone. A white envelope slid under my apartment door at exactly 2:03 a.m. Inside was a single line, printed in sharp serif font on crisp paper. We saw it. Do not reply. Do not run. No signature, no emblem, just silence. But I recognized the phrasing. It was the exact language used in federal witness debriefing protocols. The kind used when they can't protect you yet, but want you to think they can. And it meant someone, somewhere, had decided my story wasn't just noise. I stood at the window for hours, watching the street. No movement, no cars, just the slow drift of early morning fog. The kind of fog that muffles more than sound. It smothers questions. At 5:21 a.m., my precinct keycard pinged me with a silent push notification. Access restored. I almost dropped my phone. No explanation, no context, just 2 words. I tested it, logged into the internal system. My dashboard, completely clean, no flags, no review notes, no open memos. It was like none of it had happened, but it had. They had rewritten me again, only this time they erased all traces. A second silence. Not punishment, containment. I knew what this meant. They weren't offering forgiveness. They were buying my stillness, my willingness to shut up and move on. If I stayed quiet, I could keep my job, my pension, maybe even my name, but not my soul. Because I knew, and I couldn't unknow. That day, a new officer showed up, young, eager, full of the kind of clean hope the system loves to devour. His name badge read, Delaney. R. No relation. Just another coincidence. But again, coincidence doesn't live long in places like this. He asked me where the evidence locker was, said he was starting a new rotation, said they'd told him to keep an eye on chain of custody protocols. I smiled, showed him the hallway, didn't say a word. But in my pocket, the flash drive buzzed. A backup signal I'd installed before they wiped my access. A ping. Someone else had opened the drive, and this time, not oversight, not internal, not ATF, an external address, independent, a journalist. I had left breadcrumbs, but someone else had started to follow them. I wasn't the voice anymore, I was the source, and if they wanted to contain me, they'd have to silence the world too. The first email came at 6:14 a.m. Subject, "Is this you?" Attached, a screenshot of the forged signature page from room B9. Then a second message, 1 minute later. "We can prove the timestamp was altered. You ready to talk?" The address wasn't official. It belonged to a journalist I vaguely recognized from a past federal scandal. Someone who had made a career out of exposing the quiet rot no one wanted to touch. She wasn't mainstream, but she was dangerous to the right people. I stared at the screen for a long time, because this wasn't just a decision. It was a point of no return. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I checked the drive's hidden audit logs. 3 more accesses, 1 from a redacted IP, 1 from a university network, 1 from a law firm. The story was spreading, quietly, but faster than I expected. That day at the precinct, things felt wrong. Not tense, not openly hostile. Worse, calm, manufactured. Everyone spoke in half sentences, eyes half focused. Even Jenkins avoided joking. And the lieutenant, nowhere to be seen. His name had been removed from the chain of command bulletin. Just gone. Scapegoat cycle complete. Someone had already replaced him. At 3 p.m., a department-wide Zoom invite dropped into my inbox. Policy reinforcement brief, mandatory attendance. The subject line was generic. The timing wasn't. I joined from a burner laptop in my car. Location masked, camera off. The presenter? A faceless voice with an animated policy slide deck. But halfway through, the slides glitched just for a second, and in that flicker, a frame flashed, not part of the deck. A still image of me in the B9 room, sitting, unsigned form in front of me. The caption underneath read, "Non-compliant asset under review." Then the slide returned to normal. No one reacted, no one mentioned it. But it wasn't for them. It was for me. A warning, I was being watched, again. They hadn't stopped the surveillance. They'd just changed the tone of it. Now it was quieter, sharper, no longer a leash, just the edge of a blade. That night, the journalist finally sent the third message. A single sentence. "We found the original case, the one they built yours on. Same playbook, same fake report. That officer didn't make it." Attached was a scanned page from a closed-file homicide in Arkansas. Same fake biometric log. Same cleared from suspicion rubber stamp. Same shell casing, photographed on a tray. The officer's name? R. Delaney. Not a suspect. Not a shadow. The prototype. And I was version 2. There's a point when fear stops being a feeling and becomes a schedule. I knew I had 48 hours, maybe less. The story was already in the hands of people who wouldn't play by department rules. And the system, it doesn't panic. It adapts. The morning after the journalist's third message, my building's fire alarm went off. 4:38 a.m. Loud, relentless. No smoke. No trucks. By the time I stepped into the hallway, I saw it. My apartment door had been opened, not forced, just left ajar. Inside, nothing was missing, nothing out of place, except for one thing. My old academy yearbook, pulled from the shelf, opened to the page with my picture. A sticky note marked the corner. The message was typed like before. "You were always obedient. Don't start pretending now." I didn't report it. Who would I report it to? At the precinct, my desk had been relocated, not cleared, moved, no explanation. Just a small note taped to the new monitor. Temporary reassignment, policy transition. No one mentioned it. No one needed to. But the printer queue told the truth. A backlog of internal memos, incident reports, and surveillance logs, all time-stamped with my name, my badge ID, even though I hadn't been on duty during those hours. I'd been cloned, digitally. The system had created a phantom version of me to shadow real-time protocols, proof I had complied, participated, obeyed. Meanwhile, the real me, isolated, silenced, and now erased. I sent the journalist everything, all of it, every document, every backup, every audit trail with embedded metadata. I even included the video screen capture from room B9 that I had covertly recorded on my smartwatch. She responded 3 minutes later. "I believe you, but belief won't protect you." She was right. Truth wasn't a shield anymore. It was a flare in the dark. That night, I got a call. Not from the department, from the law firm that had accessed the drive. They didn't introduce themselves, they just asked one question. "Do you want your name back?" It hit me like a freight train. This wasn't about justice anymore. It was about identity recovery. They'd taken my record, my clearance, my history, and replaced it with something malleable, something useful. To the system, I wasn't a person, I was a template, and now the only path forward was litigation. But to sue the system that owns your digital self, you need more than proof. You need witnesses, and I was running out of those. The last witness was supposed to be dead. Delaney, not the rookie, the original. I had accepted she was gone, lost in some closed-loop case file, name dragged through just enough digital mud to disappear completely. But then the journalist sent me a photo. It wasn't grainy, it wasn't old, it was live. Delaney in a rehab center outside Tucson, living, silent, scarred. She hadn't died, she had been stored. I booked a ticket under a false name, flew without luggage, and arrived just after noon. The center was clean, quiet, and guarded not by locks but by paperwork, NDA walls thicker than concrete. But she saw me. She knew me. Her eyes tracked me from the hallway as I approached. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. Her gaze said it all. They almost erased me. I held up a single photo, the printout of the evidence casing, the one that started my fall. Her hands trembled as she took it, and then she nodded. Delaney wasn't just alive. She remembered everything. She'd been the first test case, the first to raise a red flag on a ballistic mismatch, to log a quiet report, to be overwritten by a system built for erasure. But unlike me, she didn't have time to react. They'd hit her fast: smear campaign, medical hold, administrative leave, then silence. No family, no advocate, no trail. Until now. That night, we sat in the visitor courtyard beneath buzzing yellow lights. She handed me a USB, a copy of her original report, time-stamped weeks before mine, with her own name and my casing ID. They'd used her template to build my downfall, not just reused the protocol, recycled the entire event, names changed, locations tweaked, but the same signatures, same misclassification memos, same cleared from suspicion autocode response. They weren't erasing people, they were repurposing them. A factory of digital ghosts stitched together by auto-consent and compliance reports. I returned to the city with a new plan. We weren't just blowing a whistle, We were pressing charges. Delaney, me, and 5 others the journalist had uncovered. A class action filing, federal level, identity corruption, biometric forgery, institutional fraud. It would take time, but this time the signatures would be real, and they'd be loud. Final beat. The system built a story where we were silent. Now it was our turn to write the ending.